your local Kiwi Lane creative partner. Hopefully you all can see my screen okay. I haven't gone live in YouTube in forever, so I wanted to make sure that I got everything as perfect as I could get it where you could see me and really see what's going on. Hopefully this angle is okay. I may end up having to turn the camera slightly. Let's see if that makes a difference because I feel like it's in the wrong spot. That might be better. Yeah, I think that is better. It may not be able to keep everything in the camera view, but I think this is a better option in terms of you being able to see what I'm doing. And I did have it set up for horizontal, but for some reason it kept telling me I had to turn it around. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining. Again, I'm Marcia Worrell. I'm a Kiwi Lane creative partner, which just means that I love Kiwi Lane products. I use them regularly, and I love to share them with all of you. Now, I am also a Creative Memories advisor, so you will see that I do use quite a few Creative Memories products as well. For instance, I love using my tape runner from Creative Memories, as well as scrapbook adhesive with the Easy Runner that we actually used to carry with Kiwi Lane, but we don't carry it anymore, but I still use them both. And you're going to see me use a couple of other products tonight that are also from Kiwi Lane and perhaps Creative Memories. Now, I'm going to show you really quickly the kit, and then we will get into the templates, okay? So the kit itself is from Kiwi Lane, and this is our monthly kit that anyone can purchase, not just Kiwi Lane creative partners, but anyone can. And in the kit every month, it's sort of a surprise until we get it, but it has beautiful papers, templates, journal cards, phrases. Sometimes there are embellishments as well. It just depends on what they offered that particular month. So for this one, this is the December kit. And I absolutely love the colors that they chose for this kit. Absolutely beautiful. You know, where we are, we do not get snow, like ever, okay? We don't have like your traditional winter at all. And so the great thing about this is it's beautiful paper that can be used for more than just winter. It's not just snow. It's not just Christmas. It's definitely one of those things where they try to include different elements and themes. And you'll see that on the paper that comes with the kit, that this time around there were 3 different themes. That was family time at home, Christmas gifts, and winter memories. And so they tried to make it where the paper is universal enough to be able to utilize for all 3 of those, but also be able to give that theme where if you wanted to use it all for Christmas, you certainly could. All right. So in here, of course, you have the pamphlet. And every month there's always a QR code where if you scan the QR code, you are able to get the idea book that does come free. For you to be able to download it if you choose to print it out. It's typically full color, gorgeous layouts, definitely some great ideas that you can use. In the kit, as I mentioned before, you have Kiwi Lane templates, and if you're not super familiar with Kiwi Lane templates, these are utilized for you to be able to trace and cut out your items. You typically use them to help you plan your layout, as well as trace to be able to cut them out. And then of course, as you lift up your template and put down that piece that you just cut out, it helps you keep everything aligned on the page. And you'll get a chance to see me do that this evening. Then, of course, you do have your journaling boxes or your phrases, your sayings. It just depends on what they offer that month. They typically are almost always double-sided, so you can always utilize the back part. It's usually more patterned paper if you're not interested in the journaling cards. And I'm actually going to show the journaling cards as well after I show the paper. So this first pattern is this gorgeous sort of like reindeer looking paper. It's got these cute little reindeers and the gorgeous house. Anyone that's ever lived overseas, perhaps in Europe, this would be absolutely perfect because it really does mimic many of the prints that you see there. It is double-sided, very hefty weight paper. The back is this gorgeous gray-blue color with a very, very slight pattern as well. Then you have the next one has a reindeer and it has little phrases like no peeking, do not shake. And it's got little gifts and some other little icons that are perfect for Christmas. On the back has a little bit lighter shade of blue with a pattern, very, very subtle pattern, beautiful monochromatic sort of tone on tone. The next item has bunnies and a fox and looks like a partridge. It has the trees and the deer and a polar bear and even a little squirrel. Very, very cute. A couple other little emblems as well. Very cute. Not blatant, overly Christmas. You certainly could use it for other photos as well. And then the back has this beautiful sort of beige cream color, almost like a mosaic print. Again, very, very subtle. And you'll find many of the papers with Kiwi Lane have this beautiful bright print on one side, and oftentimes will have that monochromatic on the other. So this one, of course, has the leaves and has these gorgeous like little swirls. And then on the back has a lighter blue that has a beautiful pattern. Feel free when you hop on to say hello. I'd love to see where you're watching from. So this one has this gorgeous green sort of diamond print with the little tiny leaves inside. And then on the back has this beautiful, reminds me of like a Christmas sweater, this gorgeous sort of pink color. And I apologize for the lighting in this room. It does not do the papers justice. The lighting in this particular room is not the best, but this is the one where I usually scrapbook and have the most space. So this one has this beautiful stripe blue, and then on the other side has this gorgeous beige color. It reminds me of wheat. And then the last 4 sheets, well, nope, actually there's a few more. I was gonna say these are double, so you have 2, so these are perfect for background prints. It's like a dark maroon color with a very, very subtle line on it. And then the back is this sort of lighter blue-gray that has little dots. And then the next 2 are like a green, not quite a forest green, but it has the lines as well. And then on the back has this light beige, has a stripe. And then the last 2 pages are this dark blue on one side, very, very subtle lines. And then on the back has this beautiful light green, almost like a sage color. All right. And then we're going to quickly just flip through. I'm not going to go through every single one, but flip through some of the journaling cards. And of course, I opened this kit with you, so I have not pre-looked at them. So I don't know what all the journal cards are right offhand. I watched the sneak peek when they first showed it with the company. Just showing off the little cards very, very quickly. So you'll see some of the items. And it's funny, they actually had a contest about gonna go lay under the Christmas tree to remind my family that I'm a gift. We actually had a very, very cute little game contest for that. Okay, and the last couple are here. And for those of you, I think some people had asked me ahead of time what hygge was, and that's a Danish word. It means a calm and comfortable time with friends and family. And so there's actually a definition card, which I think is super cute there. A couple others as well. All right. And then you have some larger ones. And typically when they're large like this, they're designed to go with specific templates, but you can always cut them out of others. All right, so that is all of the little journal cards. We will come back to those later as I'm picking what journal. Now, I do not have any specific pictures in mind tonight, okay? I am just scrapbooking. I'm showing you the process, and I'm going to create and finish a couple layouts. And so I do not have set pictures, but I am sure I have some winter photos from my kids playing in snow once upon a time. So when we're looking at our templates come in different types. We have what we call accessories. And so the templates that came with this kit this month, these would be your accessories. And you do have one long one that could be considered a border. And then you have borders that come in a pack like this. Now, I typically use borders for most everything. I love borders. I use them in all kinds of stuff. Even when I don't always use accessories, I almost always use borders on my pages. And so tonight I have chosen our Matthew Boulevard border set and our Jason Lane border set. And I'm going to kind of use a little bit of each one, which means I'll use like the borders come in sets. So in this set, you have 3 sets of 2. So I will possibly use like 2 of them out of here, 2 sets, or 1 set and then 1 set out of the Jason Lane, or I may use 2 and the other one vice versa. It just depends. And so I'm going to start off by taking out my Matthew Boulevard. to help me design and create my page. That's the first thing I want to do before I cut anything, before I trace anything, before I ink anything. I simply want to start out by just playing, okay? I just want to kind of design my page, see what's out there, see what's available, and see how I want to put these together. So again, I mentioned that there are 3 sets, which means there's 6 in here, and they come in pairs. So for instance, you have 1A, and then you have a 1B, so 1A and 1B would fit together, which means when I'm designing, I can put one at the top, one at the bottom, or I could put one on the left, one on the right. I could put one on the left, one at the bottom. I could put this into a 2-page spread and space them out and put one on one side and one on the other. I mean, really, the possibilities are endless. You can also do what we call back to back, which means you typically will have a border on the top, a border on the bottom, and then some sort of paper in the middle. Oftentimes, if I do a back to back, I will have the top one and the bottom one, and then I'll do 2 layers down the middle. And you definitely do not have to use the same set to make your back-to-back. So for instance, this is 1A and 1B. I may just use 1A, take 1B away, and then use 3B to make my bottom piece, and then of course put something in the middle. You most certainly can always layer another one in the middle as well, and it doesn't have to be that straight line that I mentioned. Now I prefer straight just because it's easier for me. I prefer straight just because a lot of times I can get more bang for my buck with paper if I'm just cutting strips of paper rather than having to use all the curves, okay? So it really just depends on what you personally want to do. So I am actually liking this 3B from Matthew Boulevard at the bottom. I'm not so sure about the 1A. I have used this before in another layout, but I'm not so sure I like it with this one. However, I do, let's see, I'm looking at this 2A, maybe 2A with the 3B at the top is what I'm thinking. And then maybe from the Jason Lane, let's see if we have one we can layer. Because if not, then I may go with the straight ones, as I mentioned before, just making some straight cuts. So here, you can tell I've used these quite a bit, just because you can see the pencil lines. So I almost always trace with pencil. Now, I have seen some people prefer to trace with pen, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I always like to use pencil, so just in case I make a mistake, right? Okay, so we could possibly layer this like that. Okay, so if I was to layer like this, I, of course, will want to put photos. Now, I typically will use 4x4 photos, or 4x6, or 3x4, or 4x3, right? And so I can space those out, you know, wherever I think they can go. I do have a set of photo templates that I can also use if I wanted to pull those out. Now, I chose not to pull those out tonight, but I'm actually going to cut down my paper to those 4x4 sizes, 4x6 and 3x4 and 4x3. So I'm actually just going to use those instead of using the matte templates like this. I'm just going to put them on the paper so you can just see them up close. All right, so I'm really liking how this looks for my first side. So I'm thinking on this green, and I love the sage, thinking on the first page, and then on the second page, I am thinking maybe this 2B over here, almost to the edge. Like, I'll leave a little bit of space so you can still see some of that sage. I'm thinking this one, and the one that I used on top here was 1B from Jason. Let's see what 2B looks like. Or, I'm sorry, 1A. Let's see what that would look like. Oh, I think I like that. Okay, so I think I may end up putting that over here and layering it on top of the one underneath. Now, so I think I have my borders down, so I'm going to move those out of the way, and now I'm going to pull out the accessories that came with the kit. And the accessories, like I said, that came with the kit, lots of these I do use, even if I only use 1 or 2 out of the kit. I typically will use them to give that extra flair, but you absolutely do not have to, okay? You do not have to at all. You can use other accessories. You can mix and match. And each month, the kits that come out, they give us the like ideas. They show you what kits will coordinate with the accessories they provide, okay? So this one, let's see. And actually, I realize I sort of misspoke too. I just want to clarify. So this kit, we received it in January, okay? We received it in January, and it was the kit for, I'm sorry, we received it. Yeah, well, I received mine in January. My mail always takes a little bit longer. So I received it in January, and it was the kit for January, if that makes sense, okay? But there is a kit that your Kiwi Lane Creative Partners just received or will be receiving, and that's the one for February that's coming out. And it is a very beautiful, almost like, I'd say maybe like country themed, but it is gorgeous and definitely can be used for more than just like the farm life, okay? Absolutely gorgeous paper. I cannot wait to get that one. And I do have pictures in mind for that one from the county fair. All right, so I'm looking at these particular accessories. You have Simple Life 5 of 6, and you have Simple Life 4 of 6. And I'm sort of thinking about layering these somehow. And then you have a Simple Life in this 3 of 6. And the numbers just means it's part of a set, okay? It just means it's part of a set. And so, like, if you have a bunch of things out at once, it's easier for you to put them back together. Now, I've posted videos before here on my YouTube channel, so you can always see, like, how I store all of mine. And I keep them down in sleeves and that kind of thing. With my kits like this, however, I keep them in this large 13 by 13 folder. I keep all the paper together, whatever's left over that I haven't used. And sometimes I have used every single scrap of paper and it's just the templates left. But I still keep them inside of a folder. It has the month and the year at the top so that I know which kit it came from. That way, if there's ever a question or someone's looking for something or they want to know what coordinated with it, then I have it all together, right? All right, so I think for right now, we're just going to stick with these templates along with the borders. All right, so I am going to trace out the templates for the borders first, but we need to decide which paper we're going to use. So let's bring the paper back over. All right, now I personally am one of those people that I love to have one paper that is very, very bold, that has like large shapes or, you know, something flashy. And then the other colors on the page, I want them a little more subtle, or the patterns a little more subtle. So as I mentioned before, I'm not absolutely certain which photos I'm going to use for this. I do know I have snow photos. I do know I have quite a few from when we lived in Japan. And I am kind of thinking this pattern that has the polar bears. That has the cream on the back that actually could also coordinate with the green as well. So I'm thinking maybe this is the bold pattern. I think we had a light blue. Yep, there's a light blue that goes with the bird and the horse. We already have a green. Let me see what's on the back of that one. That one's that sort of pinkish red. Actually, I think that's going to work for now. Okay, so for right now, we're just going to pull out these two sheets. And when we go to trace and replace them in a moment, you'll see that you can just flip it over to get the other color, which is why it's great that they're double-sided. So you only need to sometimes cut once. You don't have to cut several times, okay? All right, so I'm going to start with the one with the animals, and let's just slide this one out of the way for a moment, and that way we have a level surface. So remember I said I always use a pencil when I go to trace. It just makes it easier. And it's just a regular pencil. I mean, and I have regular pencils that have erasers too, like this, like the ones that my kids, you know, have for school and whatnot. All right, so I am going to make this paper with the animals, this top template. So all I'm going to do, now keep in mind, one thing I will say, had I not decided to use different pieces for the top and bottom, I could have simply taken... it's not this one, sorry. Is it? Hold on. It's over here. There it is. I was like, I know I had it. There we go. On that side, all I have to do is trace this way. Now, the only concern with that is that when I go to trace this, because I'm using this on the top, the animals will be upwards, right? But remember, this piece is on the other side coming sideways, and I don't want my animals sideways. So more than likely, what I'm going to do is I may not necessarily utilize this same paper for this other half. I may make the accessory, this little snowflake looking piece here, shape, go on these. That way I can position it where I want, and the animal could even be like in the middle of it maybe, okay? So I just want to keep that in mind. But if this wasn't a directional pattern, which is what we call it, where it looks a little different if you don't cut it the right direction, if it was just stripes or polka dots or something that didn't matter as much, I could simply line this up, trace this one time, cut, and then, just mark where it is on the side and cut it out like you've seen me do in other videos. But because I don't want it sideways, I'm not going to do that. So instead, to save paper and to make sure that the paper goes well. In fact, let me flip it over for a second. So I actually might do that still. Okay, so we know that we want the animals going up and down. So we're going to bring this all the way to the bottom of this paper, okay? And I am simply going to take my pencil and I am going to trace. You don't have to use a huge amount of pressure, okay? I am still going to use this other side, but I am going to, let's see. I'm going to have to flip it over. Let me check that I like the way that looks. Because what that means is when this one goes to the other side, it's actually going to be flipped upside down. Let me make sure that I still like how those two things look layered together. Yep, I think we're good. Okay, so we're still good. All right, so all I'm going to do this time is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm simply going to draw a line all the way across. Now, I have a paper trimmer, so when I go to cut this straight line, I'm going to use a paper trimmer. But let's just say you didn't, you only had scissors. You absolutely could just cut that with a pair of scissors. Most of the time when people already have a paper trimmer, they don't draw a line all the way across. They just draw a line on the edges and the ends so they know where to cut it. I chose to do it that way just in case you are only using scissors. You can, you would see how to cut it, okay? All right, so we've we've traced our first two templates that we're going to use. So for the time being, I'm going to flip this one around and put it back on the piece of paper we originally had here. And this one, I'm going to place it back up at the top of the green so we can keep up with that one. And it's right there, okay? And I am going to go ahead and cut these out because I want to see how much space I'm still going to have to see if there is enough room for my little snowflake pieces, or if I want to use what's left of this side to help me on layering for these three pieces right here, okay? So let me cut these out and you'll get a chance just to see how simple that is. So what I typically do to make things simple is I take my trimmer. I'm simply going to line up that line that I drew earlier in pencil with my marks here. I don't know if you can see that well. And you'll just see the line go straight across. Okay. I'm going to place this down and I'm going to simply run it across. And this is the trimmer I typically use the most. Now, I don't use it all the time, and I do have other trimmers that do different things. But I do like the Creative Memories trimmer because it does have the different cartridges, and I actually keep most of mine stored back here underneath. And they offer different like shapes and that kind of thing, different trims. Okay, so that's all that is a paper trimmer. So now I am going to cut out. Now, I'm not sure how well you can see those pencil lines because this is a darker paper. Okay, so I'm simply going to follow the line, okay? It doesn't have to be perfect. I guarantee you mine is not perfect because as I have gotten a little older, the arthritis in my hands sometimes does not play nice, okay? So I can tell you I still absolutely love this process. And I love this process because, again, I was able to design before I ever cut anything. I was able to design and play with it and decide it where I wanted to put things. And I can simply do that and make those decisions before I cut into my paper. And then I feel like, oh no, I've cut it and I can't make any changes, okay? Because you absolutely can. So now you'll see here's that paper. So I'm going to show you this first one. Our next step would be to replace this. But to replace this template on the page, before I do that though, I want to ink it. Now I have tons and tons and tons of Tim Holtz Distress ink. I love that particular brand and all different colors. But my go-to most days is Distress Ink Vintage Photo. And I do have Distress Ink. I have Distress Oxide. I have a ton of them. But I prefer either the Distress Ink or Distress Oxide in this Vintage Photo. Now, inking this is going to do one of two things. One, it's going to hide any white core if you're using white core paper. All right. And it is also going to hide, typically, your marks from your pencil. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I have been scrapbooking for over 26 years. My oldest child is 26. I started scrapbooking when I was pregnant with her. And I have never once had someone lean into my scrapbook page and say, oh no, I can see the white core and I can see your pencil lines, okay? I just don't have those kind of friends. And I love them dearly for not critiquing me that way. But for me, okay, I am sometimes a little bit of a perfectionist. So for me, I prefer to not be able to see those things. So I like inking. I love the dimension that it adds. So simply all I did was I removed the template and now I'm putting that piece that we've just cut out. I'm simply sitting it down. I am not adhering anything yet, okay? So now I am finished for the time being with the Matthew Boulevard 2A. So I'm going to set that off to the side, all right? And then that other piece, and you'll be able to see it a little bit better because it is lighter, that is going to go over here is that piece. Because see here, see how the animals are sideways, and I know I don't want sideways, so I'm going to flip it over and we're going to use the lighter color piece. Now this time you should be able to see the inking just a little bit better because it is a lighter piece of paper. I typically will ink my pieces once I cut them out all the way around, okay? I will ink them all the way around, because even though it's a piece that perhaps just might, and I do mean might, just might end up being covered up, because that's a very real possibility that it'll get covered up. You never know. You may decide to move something, and I know that I lots of times change my mind at the last minute and move something or untuck a photo or tuck it behind something. And just in case I want to change it up later, I don't want to necessarily have to go back and pull out whatever it was that I was, didn't ink and have to re-ink it, okay? So now we have this piece that is now inked, and you can see it's very subtle. You can make this inking as dark or as light as you want it. You can make it as heavy or not. Okay, so I'm going to replace this one that was on the bottom. That was the other half of that. And that was the Matthew Boulevard 2B. All we did was flip it over so that we could get that side of the paper. All right, so now we have the Jason Lane 1A, we have the Jason Lane 1B, and then we also have this piece underneath here that is Matthew Boulevard 3B. So I think for continuity, because I love when the pages flow together well, I don't want to make my Jason 1B the light color, even though I want the light color over here. Because remember, these two, the Jason Lane 1B and the 1A, go together. So they match. So I want to make sure those two are the same color, but this bottom one, I want to be a different color to coordinate here. So I'm going to take that piece of paper I had earlier, I'm going to flip it over, and this time I am going to trace the 3B on one side. But I think I want to make it just a little smaller than the actual template. So I don't know how well you can see that on camera, but you see how I slid this over? And because I slid it over, I made the width of this border a little bit thinner, okay? That way I don't use quite as much paper, and it'll still leave quite a large piece over here, so that if I ever want to use that one again with the animals, I certainly can, okay? All right, so I am going to, again, trace. All right, so there's my tracing. I'm just going to put this back for just a moment, and I am going to cut this out. Now, if I did not already have the beige on this other side over here, I absolutely could use the other opposite side of this paper, make this one cut, and that would give me that other border, okay? But I chose not to do that, and that's totally fine. So instead, I'm only going to use the one side. Only going to use the one side, and then I can save this other side for another project, okay? I typically try to move the paper and somewhat keep the scissors as steady as I can. But as I mentioned before, I do, have some problems with arthritis, but I absolutely love this process. It is still easy enough for me to still be able to do this. And please don't get me wrong. I absolutely have a Cricut, and I adore my Cricut and I adore my Silhouette. I use them for many things, but there's something very soothing and therapeutic for me to be able to just trace this paper, cut it out, and not have to pull out the Cricut or my mats, look for the software or any of that. This is a lot easier. This is portable for me on the go. I cannot tell you how many times, my husband could tell you, that I have brought a scrapbooking kit, not unlike this, and a pack of templates of my choice, or you just use the templates that came in the kit, and I have taken them on the road with us. We do go RVing from time to time. We don't go a lot, just because I do still work full time. So oftentimes, I can't get out as much as I want, but I do take this on the road with us more than once. I've done it more than once, definitely. And I've scrapbooked in the RV. I've scrapbooked when we've gone out of town to hotels and so forth. And it's just very portable. And one thing I want to make note of, you absolutely can use these templates on any brand of paper. And I definitely do. I love Kiwi Lane paper because it is nice and a heavyweight paper. But I have absolutely used these templates on other brands. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mix and match papers from time to time. You can use them on anything. So if you don't have a Kiwi Lane kit, that's totally okay. You just put together a kit of papers that you like that coordinate well, and you make your own kit, okay? All right, so now we're at this point where we've got the top and the bottom. They are both inked, okay? And now I just need to make sure that this one and that other side, that the paper works for both sides, okay? Because we want the paper to be the same. So now we're gonna pull out that second piece of paper. If you remember, it had this pretty red pattern, and then on the other side it had the blue. Now, because this has such a dark blue, this has the green, and this has the white, I think I want to go with the red. I think that'll be very pretty to have that red right there in the middle, okay? So now we're going to simply take the Jason Lane 1B and the 1A. We are going to line them up, and remember what I said earlier, you don't necessarily have to trace them both. You really just pick one side and trace it, and then cut it out, and it works, right? You just open it right on up. So I am going to go here. This paper on this side is not really directional, and it really wasn't directional on the other side either. So that makes it perfect to be able to use it on both sides. So this time I'm just going to draw one line at each, just a small line to see where to cut without going all the way across. All right. So again, we have that 1A and 1B. Let's move this back because it shifted just a little bit, and I'm actually going to slide it up while I cut this out. Again, if you are watching, do feel free to hop on and say hello. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help. All right, so I'm just looking to see where that line is. Okay, so it looks like that line is right about here. Yep, that looks about right. Okay, and we're going to cut just straight across, and there we go. So now we just have to cut out this side. And again, sometimes it is a little harder to see the lines because of the paper, because of the pattern. I'm just following the sort of shiny silver so I can figure out where to cut. I'm looking. And there are times when I do turn the paper over because it's easier to see on one side. And I will tell you, in the past, I have also cut on the lighter side too. And actually, I think I'm going to recut this because I'm having a hard time seeing that. I'm sorry, not recut it. I'm sorry, I'm going to retrace it. I said that wrong. So let me line that back up again. And like I said, this is where sometimes it does come in handy to use a pen too. Let's see. Much better. Okay. Much better. I wanted to be able, I could see it, make sure I could see it. Okay, so we are right about here. And again, it does not have to be perfect. Okay, it does not have to be perfect by the time. Like I said, you ink and you layer, it's going to look great. even if all of your lines are not straight. I do not think I have ever made a layout, I'll be honest with you, where the lines have ever been perfectly straight. Even in some of the ones where it's like straight lines. Because you'd think, okay, straight lines, all you're doing is cutting it with a paper trimmer, you know, it should come out straight. Nope, even then, sometimes stuff happens. Okay, beautiful. All right, so those are there. So now I'm going to ink them as well. Now, some people do ink all their pieces at the end together. Other people ink one at a time like I'm doing. I'm going to be honest with you. I almost always ink like I'm doing right now, where I ink right after I cut out a paper. And I'll tell you why, okay? I am one of those people, I truly have ADHD. And because of that, sometimes I get a little sidetracked. Oh, I want to show you. See how you can still see the white core right here, but you can't see it here because of the ink. That's what I was talking about earlier. I'm one of those people that will get sidetracked. And because I get sidetracked, I accidentally have not inked a piece of paper before and not realized it until it got on the page. And while, again, inking is totally optional, and some people don't ever ink at all, you can tell the difference from when you have inked pieces and non-inked pieces. And it's not always intentional, okay? Sometimes I actually do create layouts where I do not ink every single page. Totally. There are times when I do not ink every single page, okay? I'm sorry, every single piece. And because of that, because of the fact that a lot of times I, try to, but there are a few layouts where I don't. It's not always a huge issue. But when you're using lighter color papers like this one, for instance, you can see that inking, and the contrast against the darker paper is gorgeous. So when you accidentally forget to ink one, but you have several others that are inked, it kind of throws off the layout. So I always try to remember to ink. And to help me do that, to help me remember, I ink behind each piece that I cut out. That way I don't forget, because I'll be honest with you, like I said, absolute truth, I have forgotten before. And that was not fun for me, because then I had to lift it back off the page to fix it. Okay, so real quick, for those just joining, I'm using the Distress Ink Vintage Photo by Tim Holtz to ink the pages. All right, so now we've got that third piece cut out, and it's going to replace the Jason Lane 1B, okay? So now we are here, our second piece of border. These are back to back, and then one in the middle, and I may do a small strip going across, okay? On our second half of the layout on the opposite side, remember we've got that cream color, and now we're going to replace the Jason Lane 1A with this beautiful red. All right, so now that's going to look sort of like that. Okay, so now the next step would be to either one, cut out my other accessories, or two, cut out my photo mats, depending upon how I want to do that, or three, I could go ahead and cut that strip that I know I'm going to want to go down the side and, of course, across. Now, I've got green, I've got blue, I've got cream, and I've got red. I think I'm going to use this light blue color on the back for that strip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that paper I just cut. I'm going to flip it over so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better, because it's a little lighter. And I am going to cut a 3/4 strip for this. So I'm going to line up my trimmer on that 3/4 mark, which is that line right there. Oops, it just moved slightly, sorry. And there we go. We're going to line that back up. We're going to cut across. So there's one. Sometimes I cut with a half a strip. Sometimes I cut the 3/4. Sometimes I cut a full inch. It just depends on what's going on. Seldom do I only cut a 1/4. And that's only because putting the adhesive on there is a little trickier. And so because putting that adhesive is a little trickier, I don't want to, mess around with it too much, because they're so small with the 1/4. Now, I'm going to set these templates to the side, because I do need to now ink those two strips that I just had. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and adhere down my borders. Okay, I want to get them where they are so that I can figure out how many photo mats I need to cut and where I need to put them. All right, so I want to be able to visually see that. And because of that, I want to go ahead and get the borders down. So you'll see, again, all I'm doing is just lightly going around this 3/4 strip of paper. Again, same inking for covering up the white and just giving it that dimension. And you can ink with lots of colors. I mean, I have just about one of every main color. When I say main color, I have one shade of red, one shade of orange, one shade of yellow, green, and so forth. So that, let's say I want it more of a monochromatic look instead of this sort of vintage, I could simply use red where the red paper was, and beige for the beige, and I could use blue for the blue. And I have scrapbooked that way before and really created custom embellishments that way. But my go-to, like I said, is this vintage photo. All right, so we have those two, and you saw how quick that went. So I'm actually going to do this side first just because it's here. And I'm simply going to flip it over. I'm going to take just a little bit of my adhesive, and you don't need a lot, because if you're like me and you have several layers, you don't want to use a huge amount of tape runner all the time and then end up running out because you just wallpapered the whole thing. You know, you just put so much. Now, one thing before I adhere this down, I need to decide, do I like the stripes going up and down, or would I prefer them going this way? I think I like them up and down, especially on this side, so I think I'm going to leave them up and down. So I'm going to come over here to about a quarter of an inch away from the edge, because I want that little strip of green to show. And one thing to make note of before I put the other piece down is you absolutely can take your inking and go all the way around the edges as well. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. For this one, I'm not going to, okay? Since some of the colors are already dark, I don't want the whole layout to be very dark. So here's the first layer. Here is my second layer. So now I'm going to put just a little bit of tape runner on that. The other thing too, you can also use repositional tape. And with repositional tape, it helps too, because if you decide you don't like something, you just lift it up. And then also, I sometimes won't put it near the edge just in case I want to tuck a photo or a photo mat under there. I want to make sure I leave space. Now for this one, I'm also going to pull it in, but this time I'm only going to leave about 1/8 of an inch where you can see that sort of beige color show behind. Okay, so let's show you a little bit more of a close-up there so you have some dimension. And then lastly, for this little section, we're going to use one of the blue strips. And remember, these were 3/4. And I'm trying to give you the measurements. That way you kind of have an idea in case you want to recreate something like this. And again, this time I'm going to go just a little bit wider. Not quite, well, maybe that is about 1/4. Okay, so here is my border that is layered on the right side of the second page. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to move that, and then now I'm going to work on this side. Now I have to decide how far up the page I want to put these. I believe I want to have this cream color to come down a little bit further down, because I believe when I go to put my title, I want my title towards the top. So I'm going to pull this one down to right about here. And the reason I picked here is because I want to be able to put a photo mat down here at the bottom. This little square is about a 3x3, roughly a 3x3, maybe a little tiny bit bigger. So I typically scrapbook in 4x4, sometimes, or like I said, 4x4 pictures, 4x6, and 3x4. So I know if I had a 3x3, it'll fit here. If I had a 4x4, it'll fit with a little bit larger, but it'll layer over the border. I know if I had a 3x4, it'll fit roughly in here. So I'm okay with it being this far from the bottom, okay? So you can kind of use that as a gauge without having to pull out an actual ruler. So now I have the top of my border. Again, I'm just going to put a very small amount. I don't want to put too much because I may have to tuck something. And this time I am going to come just a little bit above the other border. Now, could I butt them up together? I absolutely could. But the reason I'm not going to is because I'm getting ready to cover this anyhow, so you can't see that gap. And what that does is it makes these appear a little bit wider than they really are. It gives me just that extra little bit of space. And you could make this gap a lot larger as long as whatever piece you put on top is going to cover it. So now I'm going to layer this one with some adhesive. Whoops. Okay, and I am actually going to, you know, I'm trying to figure out, do I want to show more of the blue or more of the white? I love this white. It really makes it pop, but I like the blue, and I like the blue border. And I'm really thinking I probably should have made this red just a tiny bit narrower, but that is totally okay. We're going to put it right there, and now we're going to layer, oops, sorry, this 3/4 strip on top of those. Okay, so just like we did on this page, we left a little bit of a space right there. We're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to give just a tiny bit of space. And how much space you choose to leave is so totally up to you. Okay. All right. So now that border's in the middle. So just to give you an idea. So, and I know I can't get them both in the screenshot, but I'm going to try. So here is the left side. Here is the right side, and here they are together. Okay. So they coordinate. All right. And I am going to put more adhesive behind these once I get all my photos tucked. All right. So now I got to decide which photo mat paper I'm going to use. And I think for that one, I'm trying to see if I have a lighter color. That pink is a little too busy for me. The gold isn't bad. There's another light blue and a beige. I don't want to cut these two because these will be good for two more double layouts. So I think I'm going to stick with this. Now you also definitely could use these, but these have some really bold patterns and I want to save those when I do these two layouts. So I think photo mat paper is going to have to come out of one of these two. So I have the light green, which I think is too much of a green. I don't want to use blue. I think I'm going to go with this gold. All right. So, and we're going to set this to the side for a moment. And I'm going to show you how I typically cut my paper. Okay. So this paper, you have the lines going one way. I am not picky on whether my lines go up, they go down. That doesn't matter a whole lot for this layout for me. So I'm okay like they are. So I'm going to start with this first cut is going to be at 4 inches. Okay. My second cut is going to be at 4 inches. But I'm going to get several photo mats of varying sizes here. All right, so, oops, there we go. All right, so this first page, remember I cut it 4. So now I'm going to cut several small pieces at the 3-inch mark. So there's my first 4x3, my second 4x3, and my, oops, sorry, my third and fourth 4x3. So now I have these. They can either be 3x4 or 4x3, and I have 4 of them just off that one row. Okay, so there's my first 4. This one is going to be my 4x4 photos. And if I needed to cut it down to 3x3 or 3.5 by 3.5, I certainly could. Now, keep in mind, even though these are 4x4, when I go to cut my photos will be just slightly smaller so you can see the edge of the paper all the way around. I prefer to cut my photo mats at the actual measurement of the paper. So, 4x4, 4x6, rather than trying to make them 4 1/4 or 4.5, because you get more bang for your buck with your with your paper. And I'll be honest with you, by the time I cut my photos and I crop them a lot of times, because I'm not someone who generally edits my photos. When I take a photo, it's whatever I took is what I print. And it's not that I don't know how, I just firmly believe that I want to remember that memory like it was. So I have no problem trimming down the photo just slightly to make it fit within what I've created. And that way I'm able to use less paper to get those. All right, so my last strip, again, was that 4x12. And I am simply going to cut this one. I'm going to pull out my arm on my measure, my trimmer here. And I'm going to cut it at the 6-inch mark, and I'm going to make 2 4x6s. Okay, so there's my 2 4x6s. Now keep in mind, I do have blue on the back if I wanted to go with a different color, but I think I'm going to stick with the gold. I might flip one of those around. We'll see. All right, so before I start playing with these really well, I am going to go ahead and start distressing these with the ink around the edges so that they can dry before I put them down. And I do that because sometimes if I've gotten heavy-handed with this ink, and I start laying it down on the layout to figure out where I want them, and I start moving them, it leaves little streaks, which is when those photo mats come in handy, okay? If you use the photo mats, it's a lot easier for you to be able to place those and really design and create that page, as I mentioned before. The problem with that is just, I'll be honest with you, I forgot to pull them out, and I didn't want to delay the video with you guys, the live, and go grab them. So we're just gonna roll with paper, and I am totally on board with that. I love the photo mats, and in fact, the ones I have the photo mat set. I'm sorry, I have the photos, what they call the photo set. Then I have the photo mats, and then I have the photo minis. So they come in, different sizes. And the great thing about that, because I'll be honest with you, most people would probably be like, well, why do you have so many sets? Well, because a lot of times when I scrapbook, I have tons of photos on the same page. And so, the set only comes with so many. So it was kind of cool to buy more than one set and the mats, so that I could layer them if need be and have enough to go around. All right, we're almost done with this part. I'm down. I finished the 4x4s. I finished the 2 4x6s. Now I'm just inking the 3x4s. And you'll see this goes really fast. It does not take me long to ink these at all. Okay, doesn't take me long to ink them. So if you've ever thought about inking for distressing, you can see how fast it goes. It doesn't take long. Oh, the other thing I was going to say earlier when I was talking about the colors. So again, I'm using the vintage photo. We do carry that as an item at Kiwi Lane, or we did. I'm not sure if it's still in stock or not, but I also like to use some of the other colors as well. There's a couple of grays and there's even a black, and I have used those to distress before as well. And you would think that the black and the gray would make the picture look dark, or the photo look dark, the layout, but it actually doesn't. It still looks really good. All right, so those are there. We're going to give these just a little quick fan. Oops, a little quick fan to try to dry them just a little bit. Okay, so now we can play with these and figure out where we want to put them. Okay, so I know that I probably want to put my title in this top corner. All right, and I may or may not use one of these journal boxes. So for sake of what we're doing, I'm just going to put one in this top corner. Honey, I'm recording right now. Yes, you can use it. Go ahead. I am going to put, we're going to put this one right here just for a placeholder. This is not what I'm just going to put it here. It's a placeholder. It'll probably be something that I use stamps with, or maybe a printed title if I don't use one of these cards, and it'll get, that one is, honey, that one's a body wash. Okay. Sorry, you got to love an 8-year-old that's going to ask you the same question again. So this one, I will probably layer it. Whatever that title is, it'll be on more than one. So it'll be about the same. That one's shampoo, dear. You don't need that one right now. You just got your hair washed. Okay, so that goes here. So now we have a spot for our title, and it may be that it's even tucked under here just a little bit. We'll put it like that. And I know that I can either put a photo here, or I can put 2 photos there. And I'm just playing. I'm not adhering anything down right now. I am just playing. So I could potentially put a photo here, or remember my earlier conversation when I said about putting the 4x4 down here. Okay, so we'll turn that way. I think I kind of like that better, only because then you don't cover up as much of this gorgeous paper here, and I really want to showcase that. So we could tuck that one under, and then potentially put one here or here. Let's see. I really like these 2 up here, and I could actually move this down just a tad if I wanted to. I could either move them down under the red like that, or I could put them above the red. I kind of like them behind the red. And then this one, I'm trying to see if I want to cover up some more of that white or put this down a little further. Let's see. Or maybe I could actually put 2 4x4s here. Let's see what that looks like. So if you have 2, they're right there. If I put 1 here, sorry, that's from the ink, and 1 right there, that doesn't look too bad. I'm trying to decide, what do you guys think? Those of you that are watching, tell me in the chat, do you think they look better under the white, or under the cream, or on top? A lot of times I'll put them under so you can see more of the paper, but you tell me what you think in the chat. Let's do a vote. Okay, and we'll leave these 2 right there for right now. All right, so now, I'll see what everyone says in the chat, and I am going to move this page over and we'll place the photos here. Okay, so I know on this side, I had this one, and then I had another 4x6, and then I've got these 3 small ones. Okay, so our choices are, and I'm trying to think of the snow photos. I know some of my snow photos, my kiddos were standing in the snow. So those might go this way. And then I think I had 1 landscape. So let's see. So if on the other side here, I have these 2 at the bottom. These 2 could potentially go on the bottom, or I could make them landscape across. And I'm kind of liking the landscape. I just want to make sure that my little arrows are going in the same direction, okay? On this one, they are going this direction. So I think I'm going to make these go in. So let me flip this one around. And then I have 2 more I have 2 small photo mats like this and 1 larger one. And keep in mind, you do not have to use all of these. I can most definitely use this on another sheet of paper. I mean, another layout, and I probably will use at least 1 or 2 of these on another layout. That way I can carry over that gold color to another layout. Okay, so far we've got this side, and then we've got this side. So I think I'm gonna go with these 2 here, and I'm gonna put an embellishment in this piece right here. So back to those trees right here that we haven't quite cut out yet that is coming. I can put those there, and then I'm going to use my little snowflake looking item in a couple of spots. Okay, so I think we're going to take these 3 and save them for the next layout. All right, so I think I like this. I don't see any comments in the chat yet whether or not you think I should adhere these under or over, so I'm going to hold off before I put these down. Okay, I'm going to hold off, but I am going to go ahead and adhere these. So we're going to just put a tiny bit of adhesive on the back just to kind of keep them in place. And I can always go back and add more later on down the line if I need to. Just going to put them down. Okay. All right. So we're going to make that one just a little further over so you can pop that tree out in the corner. Okay. And remember, this was a placeholder just for a title. I'll put another title there later. Okay. So these 2, waiting on folks to tell me in the chat where you think this should go. And then we're going to put these 2, however, down. And then we are going to trace out our embellishments and put those on. And I'll be honest with you, we're going to be done. So let's put this over. I want to bring these a little further in, right about there. About 1/4 of an inch, not quite from the edge. And there's no major rhyme or reason. It's just I want to make sure there's enough. Oops. I want to make sure there's enough space for my trees over here. Okay, I believe those are straight. Let me see. Yep, they look pretty straight to me. Okay, so here we go. This is what we have so far. Again, I don't know how much of this is completely into the camera. I'm trying to get as much as I can so that you are able to see it. Okay, so here is roughly where we are right now. Okay, all right, so now we're going to take a look at these embellishments. We have the red, we have this light blue that so far we've only used in that small strip. We have a couple of journal cards, and you can always use those inside embellishments if there's enough space, or you can use the backs where they're solid colors too, right? So for instance, we already know we want to do the tree, okay? But I want to do the tree, at least the big tree, in green. I'm trying to see if any of these have green. Nope, they do not. Yep, so the only green I have would be that one sheet we did not use then, I believe. Large enough. It was this one, okay? And the back was pink. So we know we want a green tree. So I'm going to put that there. I know that I want to use a snowflake, and I'm pretty sure, well, I'm calling it a snowflake. That's what we're going to assume it is. I'm pretty sure I want to put this in blue. So I'm just flipping the cards over to see if anybody has blue other than this one, because see how this snowflake won't cover all the words, and I want to use this later, so I don't want to use that one and cut it. Although I have done that before. I've made it work. Let's see. That's blue, but that's not enough unless I was to do what we call a half design, and I have done that. That's where you simply take an item and only cut out like half of the shape and tuck it behind.